That's a wrap. The Major League Baseball draft, 3-day draft over earlier this week, and the impact on UVA baseball is well known. Chris Graham reporting here, and I'll do, and I'll say this before I even go into my draft wrap. I've got coming up next week. I'll be doing around the ACC football kickoff, so probably later in the week next week. I'll be doing a roster analysis going into the 2025 season for UVA baseball. Um, obviously what happened during the draft, a big factor on that. Also, kind of bring in the transfer portal and things of that nature. So, um, looking at the damage, maybe let's say from the Major League Draft on UVA baseball, not nearly what it could have been. UVA baseball had up to 13 players who, including incoming recruits, who could have heard their names called. Um, and I've even hadn't even considered one of the transfers, the coming incoming transfers being one of those. So we could say 14. And for the most part, guys who went that you expected and went pretty high. There were a couple of surprises and guys who did not. And then a couple of the top recruits are likely going to sign with MLB teams based on their spot. But damage there was not so bad. Uh, let's start at the top of the draft for the UVA baseball. Griff O'Farrell went in the first round to Baltimore, and then Ethan Anderson went to Baltimore in the second round. So obviously Baltimore came up to scout one of those guys, and then decided they liked them both. That's a one of those nice things. O'Farrell went 32nd. Anderson went I think it was 61st. And I'll do a little bit more in depth on them later in this quick video in terms of how they may fit in Baltimore. Uh, they were day one picks. Also on day one, two of the shortstop of the future recruits went in back-to-back picks. Chicago White Sox took Caleb Bonham with the 43rd pick, and the Washington Nationals took Luke Dickerson at 44. Both guys who are were top high school shortstops, and they're both and they're the bonus slots. They're a couple $1 million each. They're going to go play pro baseball. They're going to sign contracts, play pro baseball. If, in fact, at this point, they may have already done that. And then right-handed pitcher Brian McCodge went with the 57th pick to the Milwaukee Brewers again at that draft slot. He's going to take that. Um, the After that, pretty much, I mean, things went pretty well. There were a couple other guys taken a little later in the draft, and it's possible that you would see above draft slot offers to them. Trey Gregory Alford, a right-handed pitcher, taken by the Angels in the 11th round, and James Nunnally, an outfielder, taken by the Brewers in the 14th round. You can offer above slot this because the default slot from the 10th round on 11th round on is $150,000, but you can offer above whatever you want to do based on your overall budget for MLB for your draft class. And that's why you take guys who are projected higher picks in later rounds, just to say, hey, maybe we can lure them with some money. One other guy from the 2024 roster, Anthony Stefan, went to the Cincinnati Reds in the 13th round. That was a little bit of a surprise. I did not actually have him on my list of guys. He wasn't a guy that was among the top 250 MLB draft prospects. And I don't know, maybe I don't know that you'll see him necessarily to go, but he's a guy that didn't get consistent at bats, consistent defense, roster time, lineup time the last couple of years. So you may see him go. Um, Two guys that, gosh, that especially one that should have gone. Harrison Didowick was a guy that could have gone as high as the second round. I saw him ranked as high in the various preseason or pre-draft analyses as high as 64 in terms of what his ranking of the top 250 prospects, which would have projected to late second round. Didn't go. It makes me think that he perhaps, or he or his representation sent out a feeler that either he didn't want to go to specific MLB teams or just in general, he was coming back. He was a draft eligible sophomore. So maybe he felt like, I can work my way into being a first round pick, and the bonus money there is a lot better than it is second or third or fourth round. And so, if I'm not going to be a first round pick, I would rather, come back, work on my game a little bit more and see if I can be a first round pick in 2025. That being the case, whatever the case, he did not go at all, which that is really signals, very loudly to me that he had to have put that word out. He didn't want to go in the draft this year. A guy that did want to go, in fact, he gave a tearful press conference at the end of the College World Series. Jay Woolfolk. He was a guy that was in the top 250. I mean, literally MLB.com's draft analysis had him at 250. I saw him ranked as high as the 80s in other pre-draft renderings. He didn't go either. And now going into day 3, which was rounds 11 through 20, he announced early in the day that he was planning to come back to Virginia. So after he didn't go in the first 10 rounds, he pretty much took his name off the board, if you want to say. So he'll be back. Those two guys actually too are among the 4 UVA baseball players who were included yesterday, Friday. I'm recording this on Saturday, on D1Baseball.com's top 100 prospects for 2025 list. So that tells you a lot about where their expectations are for next year. But Woolfolk and Didowick are back, which is really good. Good for the rotation. Didowick tied the single season record for home runs set just last year by Jake Geloff, who's working his way through the Dodgers system. And so having Didowick back bolsters the middle of the lineup. Having Woolfolk back, he struggled. He had a down and up season, as I called it, this year. He started in the starting rotation, lost his starting job in mid-March, did not do well in the bullpen, even lost his ability to get into leverage situations in the bullpen late in the season. Brian O'Connor decided, hey, this is a guy I want to build around for the postseason. UVA baseball was decimated, the starting rotation decimated by injuries as the season went on. And O'Connor leaned on Woolfolk to be his third starter in the postseason, and he won the regional clincher against Mississippi State with a stellar outing, 8+ innings, 2 earned runs. Then he won the clincher in the super regional that sent UVA to the College World Series with a kind of gutted one out, 7 innings, 3 runs, 6 hits, beating Kansas State. Got to start in the College World Series. He was dealing with a knee injury and was limited in what he could do. But what he did down the stretch there, he's going to be a guy they'll build around for next season. So those are huge pickups, if you want to say. One other guy who went, and the other guy who went in the draft, Casey Salke, went in the draft. Oh, I don't have it in this story here, but he went in the 4th round, I know. So good for Casey. That a guy that my analysis of Casey, boy, from a defensive standpoint. Now he had a couple of drop flying balls this year, which was weird, and that's just a concentration issue. But he's got a plus arm from right field. He's a 5 on a scale of 1 to 5 out there with his arm. Got power. He's a little bit of discipline at the plate issues, but he'll be a guy that he could be a steal in the 4th round if he can improve upon his selectivity at the plate. So good pickup there. But as far as I wonder, Trey Gregory Alford, right-handed pitcher. Nunnally, I mentioned James Nunnally, the outfielder, both taken in the day 3 of the draft, and guys who were projected up to 4th or 5th round picks, incoming guys. Tomas Valencias was the number 107 prospect, MLB.com. William Kirk, a left-handed pitcher, he was 110 prospect, MLB.com, and third baseman Aiden Harris, big kid, 6'5", 230-pound kid, power hitter from third baseman. He was 168 prospect. None of those guys had their names called on day 3, so they'll be coming in. These are. I mean, this is the basis for a pretty good roster for next year, no doubt. let's see real quick if Casey Salke went to the Chicago White Sox. So, they're obviously in the beginning stages. I'd say beginning stages of a rebuild. For some reason, beginning stages. They've been rebuilding for a couple of years, but just changed general managers and probably about to change managers again. So, um, from the standpoint of looking at where Griffo Farrell and Ethan Anderson fit in with the Orioles, the Orioles are, obviously they're year three of the other side of their rebuild. They had the surprise, slight winning season in 2022 as their young guys were coming up and, taking over roles at the big league level last year. Then another surprise, winning the American League East, getting knocked out early in the playoffs. But, this year, as we're speaking now, a one-game lead in the AL East, a tough race with the Yankees and Red Sox in the East. But certainly expectations that the O's will make another playoff run this year. And it's a young team at the big league level, and they're stocked at the AAA level with just a array of smorgasbord of top prospects. So, getting drafted to Baltimore, like, okay, yeah, that's great. It's close. It's close to home for both these guys. Both Ethan Anderson and Griffo Farrell are Virginia guys. Virginia, they grew up in the state. So Baltimore's sort of the hometown team. Them and the Nats would be the hometown team. Um, but it's great from that standpoint, but not great from the standpoint of I'm going to get to the big leagues. I'm a shortstop. I'm Griffo Farrell, and the shortstop at the big league level is just a guy named Gunnar Henderson. I'm Ethan Anderson. I'm a catcher. The guy at the big league level at catcher is just a guy named Adley Rutschman. So it's going to be tough to break in that way. But uh, I look at it from the standpoint if for O'Farrell and then for O'Farrell he's not a guy. His bat he's a contact hitter. So he's not a guy that is going to play the corner. He's not going to play third base for you. Defensively could, but as you need a power guy at third base from the offense standpoint. So shortstop. Then you think, hey, maybe you'll move him to second base. Jackson Holliday, the top prospect in all of minor league baseball, is the second baseman of the future in Baltimore. So that's not going to work either. So for O'Farrell, your best bet is just to make yourself trade bait. I mean, play yourself the next couple of years. This year you'll start in rookie ball probably tomorrow. Work your way up to low A, couple weeks at the most. If you can finish the season, and if you can somehow get to high A by the end of the season, get yourself to the AAA level by 2026, and then if you're playing well, they'll package you on the trade deadline, and you'll go somewhere else, and you'll be of value to the O's in that respect. I actually think with Ethan Anderson, he's a guy that could have a future at the O's at the big league level because of his versatility. As a catcher, backing up Rutschman. He could he bring the glove, play first base. He can play outfield. A guy who can catch and then play other positions with his bat can be a value at the big league level. So I think that's a future for him there. So as I said, we'll come next week um, with the roster construction for UVA baseball for 2025. The fallout from who signs, who doesn't sign from the prospects. I didn't mention Will Riley, incoming transfer from VMI. Surprise, he went in the eighth round to Seattle. And his bonus slot, it's not, I think it was in the $200,000 range. I think he's the guy that'll probably come to UVA. He can put some numbers up and develop a bit under Drew Dickinson and Brian O'Connor and pitch himself into being a little bit higher pick than that and get a better situation there. But have to watch for what he decides to do as well. Another guy that would certainly factor in. If you have him, he's a guy who's averaging something like 12 strikeouts per 9 innings at VMI. Got picked in the eighth round of the draft, so obviously the Seattle Mariners at least thought he was a guy worthy of, not you don't waste an eighth round pick. That's a pick you consider day two pick you consider decently valuable. But if you have Woolfolk and Riley at the top of your rotation, and then it'd be pretty good rotation. So let's wait and see on that. But yeah, we'll do that next week, and then kind of wrap up the baseball season. In the meantime, if you have any questions for me, any story ideas, any tips, anything like that, please feel free to email me at chris@augustafreepress.com, or you can just drop a line in the YouTube comments here, and I would love to hear from you either way. Have a great day, everybody.